Could a massive Y2K event occur today, just like, was predicted back in 1999 when the millennium was going to calculate and click over to another 1,000 years? They thought all the computers were going to crash and our grid was going to go down. Could that actually happen today for other reasons? Yeah, it's possible. Is it likely? Well, it hasn't happened in more than 150 years. Actually, a lot of people don't know about this historical event. It occurred in 1859. It's called the Carrington Event because it was Carrington who saw the actor. Richard Carrington and his colleague were the only ones that saw the solar flare emit from the sun. A lot of people didn't understand what was going on, but there was no real high tech back then except for maybe telegraphs and clicking along on the wires with the Morse code. It was a solar storm of 1859, right from Wiki, but I'm going to give you a few more adjuncts to this because this actually is becoming a little more possible today. Not that it's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, or even next year. But when it happens, we're going to be more and more technologically evolved that it's going to be that much more catastrophic. If this occurred today, our electrical grid would be down for months and months and months and months. It would be like, a lot of people think about some people think about the EMP possibility of a rogue nation creating a EMP attack on the United States and bringing down, banking systems and all this kind of garbage. This doesn't have to be. This just could be from nature. And considering how long we've been in a technological age, it hasn't been long. If 1859, this event occurred in 2013, we'd be toast, man, as far as electronic gadgets go. Our grid would go down, YouTube would go down. I mean, the whole deal would go down, man. So if you want to get back on YouTube, you better have a generator. I just got to tell you that, And I don't know, maybe I'd almost imagine commercial enterprises like Google and YouTube are probably more protected than governmental enterprises. It always seems the financial sector, when there's money involved, they protect their interests better than the government. The government's slow. So the solar storm of 1859 was also known as the Solar Superstorm or the Carrington Event, named after Carrington, right? The telegraph systems all over Europe and North America failed, in some cases shocking telegraph operators, and actually they were able to read newspapers. There was like this Aurelian, whatever the hell you call that damn thing, at night, and people were able to read newspapers at night, And I don't know, maybe the Jehovah's Witnesses had something to do with this, or the Millerites back then that turned into Jehovah's Witnesses, because every time there's a natural event, the religious people come out and say God did it, but it was a solar flare. In June 2013, a joint venture from researchers at Lloyd's of London and Atmospheric Environmental Research in the United States used data from the Carrington event to estimate the cost of a similar disaster today at $2.6 trillion. So we've been having things like this happen, and actually a lot of people, they don't realize that this is actually becoming more and more plausible today. Not that you should freak out about it, but I almost look at it like this. When you drive your car, do you not carry a spare tire and a jack and maybe a little can that could put some gas or water in, maybe a couple tools? Well, you should be doing a little bit of preparation, because there's always these unforeseen events that can happen. Not that you should worry about it, you should enjoy life, but the other thing is, when the power structure of, say, the whole United States went down, and this is like Florida down here and all this, if that went down, if you did not have a generator, you would have a lot of problems if you did not have some kind of preparation. So it's not likely, but history is basically a recording of events that occurred that were extraordinary. Like, in other words, if the ho-hum everyday things were going along, they do not record that historical event. It's only when something, either really good happens or something really bad happens. And usually it seems that something really bad happens. Not that you should dwell upon it, but you should make minor preparations for contingencies anyway. So this thing actually, but to get into like how this could actually be a little more pertinent today, um, basically, the thing is, we had in I think it was February 14th, 2011. There was a major flare up of solar flares, and it was nothing like the 1859 Carrington event. But what is predicted is that going forward in the future, these solar flares may get a lot bigger. So it's almost like a ticking time bomb that might take a long time. But as technologies evolve more and more people are dependent upon them. Even a mere, I'd say 15 years ago, people were much less dependent upon the internet for many different things. Today it's like, you can't live without the internet. If you're going to look anything up, whether it's going to be banking or email or whatever you're going to do, people go online. So if something occurred within, say, the next 5 years, because they said the 2011 February 14th Valentine's solar flare event was quite extraordinary, but nothing like the Carrington event, they expect that more and more solar flares are going to pop up in the future in the next couple of years, which is, right now, 2013. Now, these things are not going to be very predictable. But like I said, what do you do today? Every time you purchase a gallon of gas with your credit card, that's a satellite transaction. Basically, all that stuff's going to be out. The big fear is what might happen in the electric grid, since power surges caused by solar particles could blow out giant transformers. And that's particularly true of the eastern half of the United States, because the infrastructure is highly interconnected. So failures could easily cascade like chains of dominoes. Actually, you've seen what happened in New York City a couple times. Just screw-ups. It wasn't even something over the solar flare. Imagine large cities without power for a week, a month, or a year. The losses, not only the losses, but there would be utter chaos. The losses could be 1 or 2 trillion, and effects could be felt for years. So, the point is, actually, Y2K can actually happen at any time. And this is not Alex Jones. I'm not freaking trying to put fear-mongering out there. But, just like when you drive a car, you carry a spare tire, you carry a jack, you might carry a can for some additional water to put in the engine, or gasoline in case you run out of fuel. It's probably pretty smart to make a little bit of preparations, because a little bit in a real dire emergency can go a long way. And it's not a guarantee that something like this can happen. But scientists are actually saying, though, since in February 14th, 2011, when we had a major solar flare, which is one of the biggest ones in a long time, they expect over the next couple years or few years that bigger solar flares can occur. And you figure, well, we had about 150 years or so since the Carrington event, so maybe we're due for another one. But if the thing is, that's not something that is hyperbole. Like, it could, it actually happened. If you just set the clock from 1859 to 2013 or 2014 or 2015, and that occurred, we'd have an event worse than Y2K for real. And it's not something you should worry about, but it's something you ought to spend, a couple bucks on and get some backup power and some emergency supplies, because those things are smart to do, but unfortunately most people don't do it. So when you do your emergency supplies, don't tell other people, because if you got something, they're going to become, hey, I need that stuff, So, but hey, this is probably reality. Y2K can actually occur today. Sounds crazy, but actually it's reality. And Carrington event was real, 1859. And you figure, well, it's like almost 2 lifetimes away. But, maybe it's due for another one now. So it's almost like, are they going to actually do something to the infrastructure to make it strong, where these solar flares aren't going to knock things out? Absolutely not, until something happens. That I can guarantee you. So who do you have to depend on? Yourself. That's really my point.